of Stevens Point Bicycle and Pedestrian Street Safety Commission, recorded July 9, 2020.
We're going to go ahead and start the Bicycle and Pedestrian Street Safety Commission meeting for July 9th here at 3 p.m. Adam, could you do a roll call, please?
Sure. Trevor Rourke.
Here.
Alderperson Leak. Looks like no. Bill Fahrenbrock.
Here.
Michael O'Mara.
Here.
Catherine Lane Brown. And Janice Finn.
Here.
Perfect.
Here, Kathy.
Kathy's here.
Perfect. We have a quorum.
Cool, great. Thank you, everybody. All right, item 2, persons who wish to address the committee for up to 3 minutes on a non-agenda item. I do want to go first just to welcome our new commissioners to this commission. So Kathy Lane Brown, welcome to our team. If you could maybe quickly unmute, wave, and say hello, that'd be great.
Hi there.
Kathy.
Glad to be here.
Great. Thank you. And then District 8 Alderperson, Thomas Leak. Do we have Thomas? Did we have Thomas on roll call, Adam?
No, he was absent.
Okay. Gotcha. Do you know if he's excused absence or if he's late or absent?
I haven't heard a record from him saying that he would attend, so.
Okay, I haven't either, so. Okay. And then another commissioner that's new would be Janet Finn.
Hi, everybody.
Janet.
Janet here.
Thanks, Janet. Great, welcome our new members. I'll start with a second item, repeating something we already know, most of us here. These times are interesting. I think all of us know that, and confusing. I've noticed more people walking and biking more than ever before since the 22 years I've lived here. And, you know, this is very exciting, but also frustrating as well. Especially with the amount of progress our community needs to see with making it safer and more accessible to walking and biking. And I just wanted to note and remind people about our commission, and we're really heavily focused on the 5 E's, and basically regarding engineering our streets, education, evaluation, enforcing the law, as well as encouragement. Specifically in walking and biking. And our commission is really responsible for helping to implement the county-wide bike ped plan. So basically that's our charge. And on a third note, just please bear with me on Zoom here. This is my first time moderating via Zoom, so we'll see how it goes. Any other commissioners or audience members that want to speak on a non-agenda item?
I'll speak.
Go ahead, Ryan. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Rourke. I believe this is our first bike ped meeting since February.
February, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's been a lot going on in the community development department. The infamous Kyle Kearns has left us to go to Wisconsin Rapids, where he's doing excellent. I ran into him last Friday, and we're very happy to be welcoming Adam Kuhn, who's taken over for Kyle as our associate planner and zoning administrator. He's really done just a fantastic job off the bat. Has been a great addition to the city's community development team. So we're looking forward to having him be the main staff liaison to this group, and please feel free to reach out to him with any questions or comments or concerns. So that's all I had.
I had a comment.
Thank you, Ryan. Is that Alder Jennings?
Jennings, yeah.
Yep, go ahead, please.
Tori Jennings, Alder for District 1. I just would like to make all of the commissioners aware of a Finance Committee agenda item on this coming Monday. Item number 6 will be discussion about a land appraisal and potential future purchase of land. But this is about what's referred to as the Plover Crossing Trail. And this is a concept that would link Hoffmeister Drive to Gola Road, the area behind Target. So this is an exciting project, and I hope you will turn in to see that discussion and also look at the packet and the information that is in there as well.
Thank you. Any other non-agenda items? Go ahead, Commissioner O'Meara.
Yes, I have something that I'd like to have us consider at a future meeting. When going on the Green Circle, the Green Circle route in the vicinity of the east end of the Clark Street Bridge is a problem. And I'd like to investigate if there's some way we can improve that, perhaps by detouring it on an alternate route or something like in that regard. And I would like us to put this on a future agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else for a non-agenda item? I do have actually 2 items. I'll be quick here. One is actually an email received from a resident. She's willing to go on record with her name. So resident Mariah Shadell, and I just read in quote, "We were denied service the 3rd time we tried to use the drive-through at McDonald's on Highway 66, going towards Wapaka and the Taco Bell in Division. The Taco Bell told my boyfriend he had to come inside. He then heard employees joking about having COVID symptoms. We filed a complaint against them. At the McDonald's, we were told that our vehicle must have an engine or motor for safety reasons. I simply don't understand how that would be any safer than just our bikes. Some stores have been great. Qdoba and the new egg roll restaurant, which she's referring to on Division, both told us it was perfectly fine to use our bikes. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know." And again, this is from Mariah Shadell. So there's no doubt that this is unacceptable. Discrimination based on your motor vehicle, especially it doesn't cause a hazard. So what I'm saying is we'll talk with city staff to see if there's a route to take here. But because it's a non-agenda item, we won't address
Trevor?
it this time. Yes, go ahead.
There is a privileged motion. I would like to refer this to the city council for consideration.
For city council or city attorney? Not legal counsel. Sorry, just to clarify.
Yes. I was thinking specifically to the city council, because perhaps what we need to do is get some legislation that clarifies what access means and the basis of the as to why you could deny somebody in these facilities.
Okay, thank you. So again, since it's not an agenda item, we won't continue discussion at this time. Another item, will be quick here. I'm going to share my screen with a different slide here if it works. Okay, yep. Okay, so I'm looking at this photo here. All right, so this is another thing that I find unacceptable in our city. This is a photo I took yesterday, and it's me looking northward at Fremont and the intersection of Fremont and Main Street. So as you can tell, the Fremont Street is getting reconstructed, but this is a common occurrence where some sort of roadblock or structure that was left behind or really unforgivingly put in a place, even if it's temporary, that causes marginalization. So if you were someone that's walking or biking or rolling in a wheelchair or what have you, you actually kind of lost access. And is the city liable if someone falls over that? If there's a kid biking and they don't see it for some reason, what happens? So this is something I'd like to address in a future meeting. There's actually in the Portage County countywide bike ped plan, there's an objective D1, and it actually addresses the issue for construction barriers, specifically in this case, but there's also nothing regarding developers. For example, if you were to go to the Lullaby site right now, a lot of the sidewalk is blocked off in order to develop. And again, that's not really fair if it's unnecessary. Obviously, it's all relative, right? So I just want to bring that up. I'd like to bring that forward at a future meeting. Are there any other non-agenda items?
On that issue, Scott Padoon, isn't how they're keeping their site part of their construction contract?
I don't know. Are we allowed to discuss it if it's a non-agenda item?
I'm talking to Scott Padoon to get him to see if he can do anything about it.
Okay.
And we can definitely talk to the contractor, yeah, I mean, about keeping things up, because, if it's outside the construction, area, and that is an open sidewalk there, otherwise it should otherwise be marked. Yeah, I mean, the barricade, if it's going to be placed anywhere, that should be could be completely removed or placed if there's adequate space within the terrace, provided it doesn't create another issue.
Right.
And of course, use the private property behind it. Or put it in the road, which has been reopened for gravel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Okay, if there's no other non-agenda items, we'll move on to item 3, and that's the minutes of the previous meeting. I will jump back to the presentation here. Bear with me for a moment, please. Zoom, share screen. Okay, so report of the February 13th, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, I move to approve the minutes.
That's Commissioner Fehrenbach. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner O'Meara? Okay, discussion. I do have personally friendly amendments. Just real quickly, on page 4, number 4 of the agenda packet, it says TAP Transportation Alternative Grant. So the word program is missing in there. So it should read review and discussion on Transportation Alternative Program Grant 2016. That's a quick edit. Another one on the same page, in the middle of the page, number 4 in the agenda packet. It should read inquiry on why parking protected bike lane was not utilized, instead of how it reads right now. Any further discussion or edits for the minutes of the February meeting? Okay, seeing none, we'll have everyone in favor say aye.
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 Oh, I don't know if I can vote, Trevor.
That's right, you'd be alternative at this point.
One person
You have
is
quorum. Yep.
gone, so I should not.
You should.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you should vote.
Okay.
I forgot he was gone. Yep, please do vote.
Aye. Okay.
Okay. Anyone against? Say nay. No abstentions. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item 4, discussion on the sidewalk continuation project. And I will hand this over to Director Badoon with a map starting here. You see, everyone see that map okay?
All good, Trevor.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
good.
can see it. Hopefully everyone else can.
That's good.
So,
Okay, great.
so very quickly, and I guess I'll give just a little bit of history. Several years back, the city started being more aggressive on sidewalk continuation. It really started by trying to fill in some gaps, such as, if there was a block and most of the homes there, the properties had sidewalk, and there may have been just 1 or 2 properties that didn't, have sidewalks. So we're trying to make a continuous network. That is kind of since grown, yet with the same thought process and intent in mind, is to create, an ever increasing, safer, more continuous network of sidewalks. In addition to that, from the bike and pedestrian plan, as well as Safe Routes to Schools plan, we're trying to implement, those recommendations. And they work very well, the intent together to improve our pedestrian accommodations throughout the city. However, the Safe Routes to School, of course, really just concentrates on school areas, and the bike and pedestrian plan being countywide, may not break everything down to the level of detail we need to do when trying to decide on, where to go year to year within these projects. So in engineering, we thought it would be beneficial to create a priority model that would help us make those decisions. Many times as these projects come about, there's often the question, well, the why here versus there sort of question to be asked. So the prioritization model helps with that. Using a standard set of criteria, we can evaluate, where in this, what you see here is the entire city of Stevens Point. Everything colored there are areas that currently do not have sidewalk. And using our model, and we're still refining some of the things about it, you start to see that, how things might fill out, and just in sort of kind of relative terms to, level of importance and priority, identify areas that we should concentrate on first, so as to be efficient with what we do and not skipping around, down here and there, as well as just justifying our projects from year to year. So a little more detail. Trevor, can you move to the next slide, please? I've got 2 more slides here. This first one is actually the area that we're working on this year, which is over by Washington School. And I don't have the project we necessarily have overlaid, but it's the area, right adjacent to the school, Wilshire Boulevard, St. Paul Street, Jordan Lane predominantly. And even you can see from the model, even though we haven't quite completed all the inputs and stuff to it, and all the criteria, we're already starting to get the results that, we would anticipate to see. We're working within the bike and ped plan, Safe Routes to School program. We're looking at destinations and the street classifications and stuff, and compiling and assigning, priority points to all those, and then coming out with an overall priority score. So, even though we can generally arrive at these answers on our own from what we have, it's a matter of putting all that information we already have together so that we can get that kind of look to see, does it make sense? When someone asks the question, we can present to them. Everybody should feel then that, if they are being told that sidewalk will be going in their neighborhood, at their property, that the criterion used, the evaluation process was the same, used for everybody. No one should feel as if, they were picked on, and for some reason it wasn't there. We evaluated, we used it all the same, and then from there we'll pick our projects. Now, as we go forward and pick these, we're not necessarily going to just pick all the red ones and do those, and then all the purple ones and do those. We're going to try to create, areas. We've got to limit the size of our project based upon our available funding for the year, and then try to identify where we can get, the best bang for the buck, and trying to be continuous. So, within there, we're going to have to come up with areas to do that. But this is definitely going to become a tool that we'll utilize to try to create a longer term plan that we can then follow. One of the issues that we've otherwise had is that, we've been kind of coming up with the next year's project, about this time or a little bit later in the year. And it would be nice to be able to come up with a plan that might indicate for some residents, businesses, that, what might be happening in 2, 3, 4 years. So at least they have an idea of where we're going, as well as just to help on the budgeting end to plan appropriately, internally for staff to get there. So that's kind of really what the model is intended to do. And Trevor, if you want to go to the next one, I just thought this was another one. There is. So this is actually over by Madison School, and kind of shows, once again, we've got, some other areas there. I know a lot of the work we've been doing has been over in District 8, but it's not the only area that has needs. And you can see from the basic color coding, we've got some areas that have an equal sort of priority to other areas of the city. So I know some people think that we're just looking in one area and trying to grow out like a spider web from there. But the reality is that, this program will move about throughout the city based upon priorities. And it's not just arbitrary, because we started someplace, let's continue, from that area. So it's eventually going to become a very useful tool to us. And I think it already has. We're still kind of refining it and looking at make sure we have the data right. So we're doing some checks on it at the moment, as well as looking for other potential inputs, that might be beneficial, where we have the data available. We can put a whole lot of stuff in here. However, we don't necessarily have all the data in a format that we can use, readily or easily. But even already, it's clear to see that things are falling into place as we would, have predicted them. So just wanted to update everyone on where we are with that. And if anyone has any questions pertaining to that, I would definitely answer that. But just wanted to give you a brief update of kind of where we were. I know, for those of you who had been around, we had talked about this last fall. I just want to show you that we have been making progress on it, and kind of just let you know where we're at.
Thank you, Director Badoon. I guess I could start off with a few questions here. When creating the maps, so just looking at the bigger picture from the city, and you were talking about the safe routes to schools. When that plan came about from the county, did your department actually get like a GIS overlay to work off of, or is it mostly have been manual input from your staff?
It's been, the majority has been, manual input, and it really hasn't been a big issue, simply because the safe routes to school, of course, is just very targeted to where it is. So it's easy to kind of put that information in. And the other, information, is probably not to the level of detail. They looked at certain criteria and they put some things in there. They didn't cover necessarily, well, they covered the entire city. They didn't look at every, block of the city to identify things. They were looking at certain priorities that they had created. And then within that, whenever something kind of met those sort of metrics, then they prioritize it within it. This actually is taking that completely a step forward. Now, just because we're showing this doesn't necessarily mean, and that's for the ultimately the council to decide is, are we going to put in sidewalks everywhere? Maybe, maybe not. There are some areas where it's just, there's maybe a low use for it,
Right.
at the moment, and we may not. But this is at least looking at this entirety of the city, just to try to identify what it is, which should also help in areas that were not shown in, the bike and ped plan, that it could be considered, as well as it's something that we'll be able to update in the future. So if something were to change, if we were to, build a new school or create a new park, we end up with a new destination that might increase pedestrian, traffic,
Right.
we want to be able to respond to that and put that in here. So we have that then in a model that's already working, so we can update that periodically as things might change and get the results. So we want to make sure we're not neglecting anything.
Okay, and just to clarify for everybody that sees this now or watches the video later, you're not including all the gaps in this map model, right? At this point, these are the priorities, but they do include a lot of them.
This actually includes, mind you, we're still back checking. Maybe there's a segment or something missing, but this honestly is every part within the city that does not currently have sidewalk.
Okay.
So this is the entirety of the city of Stevens Point.
Okay.
I have a question, if I may.
Go ahead, Commissioner Fairbank.
So as a pedestrian, I think the biggest concern is when you are on a block where you're on a sidewalk and then all of a sudden the sidewalk ends. And I do notice in that Washington School area and in that block just north of the Park Ridge area, you've got a couple of streets there where the priority is different within the same stretch of block. Is there a reason for that that's not evident?
I guess otherwise evident from the they didn't know. And the reason otherwise comes about is because we have to use, of course, the data we have, and a lot of it is spatially based. So, originally our model actually kind of went block to block. Now we've broken those segments up into smaller, so we can try to see some other aspects of it to try to really separate the values out there so we can target areas. Because what would otherwise happen is, so some of the criteria, being spatially based. So let's say we want to be, it's a certain point value for being within 1/8 of a mile of something versus a 1/4 mile versus say a 1/2 a mile of something. To do that, within a certain length of a block, you might cross that boundary somewhere there. So, one end of the block may fall within 1/8 of a mile. The other one may be outside that, but falls within a 1/4 mile. You're going to get two different values.
So that's why Lorraine Street is a medium priority on the eastern edge and only a medium low priority on the.
Correct. So it starts to fall there, but the idea we really was
proximity to the school.
Yep. So, but with any model like this, it's a tool to use. It doesn't just dictate really what we do. So that's where we need to then come up with projects based, on the results of this model. But always trying to figure that there's a human factor involved with, with any of this, that we need to look at what we're otherwise doing, because the model is not going to be able to spit out everything. And we don't have the algorithms to create within the GIS to identify if it's continuous to this or that, or however. So it's just looking specifically at that, and it cuts off at those spatial delineations and then assigns the point values to it. And then we will have to come in and kind of massage the data later to package up what we do. Because we're not going to just look at this and ever say on Lorraine Street, say, well, that's a lower priority than that, so we're just going to stop here. We're of course going to, run that through, but we're going to assign those priorities based upon the overall, need of that area. What is Lorraine Street overall? It's, a medium priority. We're going to look at it that way. And in particular case, we're going to see that, on one end, you've got medium high, the other end, you've got medium high. Now you're trying to connect the two. Well, of course, you want a continuous network. You're going to run the sidewalk all the way through.
All right. Good answer. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yes, Director Badun, I have a recommendation actually that might be, I don't know how feasible it is. It could be very vague, but it might be useful for the public if the engineering department was able to assign rough estimate in year to completion per color. So like if we're looking at, say, the whole city, right? This could be, in the public's eye, let's just assume you're not adding any more detailed information for the public to view at this point. If you look at the key itself and you say hi, well, the public's going to say, well, yeah, that makes sense. That's probably happening next year or maybe 2 years from now. I don't know. But if you have a year range to completion, then it really gets to be understood that this is coming. So like medium low, you have a lot of outliers, right? Further away from the central city. What does that mean to the public? It might not mean anything. So I wonder if, just to communicate better to the public, if there's like a year range that could go alongside, even if it's estimated and it's, 10 to 15 years or whatever it might be for something. I don't know if you think that's a feasible goal for this.
That wouldn't be a part of what this is. This model is just trying to help us. It's an engineering tool to help us select what it is.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, we're going to use this tool to do the programming. And then ultimately the goal is to come up with that, just like we do for streets. We've got a 5-year capital, improvements program. If we're going to continue on this process of sidewalk continuation and expanding the network, I would like to be able to do the same thing as that. Because right now we're basically on an annual selection and decision-based process. And what I want to do is establish that 5-year program so that it would be included in there. So exactly what you're saying is what we would end up with. That's a different, we'll use this to generate that, but that's not what this is intended to do.
Okay.
And we'll get there to let people otherwise know, because it's exactly what I'd like to do. Because part of that too, eventually we're going to need to decide areas that, even though they show up on this model, there are probably areas that we're going to say at the moment, we don't have any plans to put sidewalk in there. You know, that may change in the future, but right now we don't see that there's necessarily the demand or the desire to have it there, you know, do it. But from this, we will create a program so that we can get that sort of information out as far as what we're going to do over the foreseeable future.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other commissioners that have a question or comments? Anyone from the audience, non-commissioner? Looking for unmutings or hands getting raised. Okay, I'm not seeing anything unless there's something in the chat. I gotta do something quick here. Okay. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Director Badoon, or is there anything you need from us at this time?
No, I just wanted to update everybody on where we were with it, because I know we had talked about it, I said last fall, and it's taken a little bit of time to otherwise generate what we have, and I wanted to share it at this time, and I'll probably bring it forward once we get closer to the end and along with some programming, just to kind of show you how we're utilizing it.
Okay. Thank you again for this, excellent work. Great progress on getting our sidewalks filled in, those gaps filled in. So thank you. Okay, so shall we move on to item 5 on our agenda. Projects for the UW-Madison Capstone Community Design and Planning Services application.
All right, thank you, Chairperson Rourke. So the intention for this agenda item, to give a little background on this, so we were contacted by UW-Madison about inquiring about whether we can submit any project ideas for their capstone projects for students to do any certain client work for us. So just to give a little background, if you forward to the next slide, Trevor, this just gives a general timeline for the class itself. From August, UW-Madison reviewing our applications that we send to them of certain topics for whatever class, whatever projects that we would end up submitting to them, all the way down to when the final capstone project and design is going to be submitted, just to give you a little background on it. But in general, these project topics that are submitted to UW-Madison can range from a variety of different areas, such as from urban redevelopment to community design to placemaking ideas to park and open space planning. Now, the reason why this discussion is happening for this meeting is to try to gauge some ideas of what we can include in the application for UW-Madison. Now, with a staff call that we've had last week between staff and Chairperson Rourke, we did come up with some initial ideas of application ideas for several different projects. First of which is having a downtown to river connection pilot study to help engineer different ways to improve the connection from the downtown towards the riverfront. And then a second idea is more of a study of the south side of the city as it relates to connecting neighborhoods and the commercial district along Division Street. So, and Trevor can speak a little bit more about, Chairperson Rourke can speak a little bit more about those two project ideas and how it is more of a need for the city to try to answer in the years ahead. But like I said, the main priority that we would want to seek from all of you commissioners is to know of any other project ideas that you can think of that would be useful for including in the application. And I would note that UW-Madison currently in the application process, we can submit more than one application, and it doesn't mean that we're limited to just one project idea, that whatever students' interests are, that's ultimately going to determine which projects are determined in part. So they could ultimately come back where we have 2, 3, multiple projects that are submitted and ultimately being carried out as a capstone project. So that's something to keep in mind, that we would like to hear any of your ideas for including in the application.
Thank you, Adam. I don't know, Director Kronowski, did you want to lead off with the South Side connection, neighborhood connection to division concept you were talking about?
Sure. So we had talked, the city is going through some tax increment finance planning, and we can talk about TIF a whole nother time if you really wanted to, but essentially part of that project plan is looking at ways to improve the south side of the city. And so, you know, is there an opportunity for us to look at some corridor connections, whether it be vehicular, pedestrian, bicycle focused, at making the south entrance more aesthetically pleasing as folks drive into the city from the villages that are south of us. It was decided that it was tossed out. What might be more tangible and might be more interesting for an application would be the Water Street connection as opposed to the south side. That one, the south side's more of a, I'll call it a 30,000 foot view as opposed to the Water Street discussion, because that's a really, that coupled with the targeted area master plan for downtown is kind of one of the next steps that we need to start looking at, and maybe having UW students look at that intersection and look at that roadway width and figure out, okay, what makes sense for the city? What, you know, our end goal is to connect the downtown to the waterfront. How do we go about doing that? What are some ways that we can do that? And so that might be an application that's more advantageous.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, slightly more history on that project idea as well. I had worked with Create Portage County on 2 occasions for a grant application through, I believe it was Transportation for America, or America Walks, and I don't think either had won an award. However, the project is what you're talking about, Director Kronowski, and that's really connecting the main street. So if we were to look at, you know, this image here that I took, excuse me, this is a Google image on the top. Google image from afar, basically you're standing on 2nd Street that surrounds the square. And really, you can sort of see the river in the background, right? It's beautiful with the trees, but you don't really feel connected, and it doesn't seem like you can get there. If you get steps closer, a photo I took years ago, obviously in spring or fall, looks like fall. It's really disconnected. It's not easy to navigate on foot or via bicycle or wheelchair or walker. I even found out from Wisconsin Department of Transportation that the pedestrian island is not ADA compliant, so it's currently a hazard to the city. And you're talking about 6 lanes of travel for cars, with a 7th lane, which is the median. So you're literally crossing 7 lanes to get to the river or vice versa. So if we, you know, applied our desire to reconnect and allow the students at UW potentially to take on a study, take on a project that really looks in depth. Like Director Kronowski mentioned, the targeted area master plan does do a little bit of delineation, and it's obvious that they are trying to connect, that plan is trying to connect the river to the downtown. However, it's mostly from a kind of a bird's eye view like this. It's mostly like not really at the eye level, at the street level. So to have a thorough study and potential preliminary design, even if it's aesthetic, might be really amazing for our city, especially when it comes to winning grants. So this is actually a project I would love to advance. I'd love to have city staff work on to submit to UW-Madison. Does any commissioner or director, do you have any questions or discussion about this project or other projects we haven't discussed?
Trevor?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
I really like the idea of the connection to the river. I would make it more of an omnibus deal with saying pedestrian, bicycle, and transit connections so that people have an easy way to go in there, and see if there's anything we need to do to make those things possible.
Excuse me, that's all part of the discussion for sure. And I imagine that would be input that the students would capture. Are there any projects?
I have,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
let me do this.
Okay.
I have a concern in terms of access to out on Highway 10 from downtown, because right now there's basically no stores for people to go to downtown. So you have to go out east on Highway 10, or you have to go down to Crossword Commons. I mean, there's few stores. There are stores, but there aren't, you know, like if I want to go get sheets or something like that, I can't just go somewhere downtown and buy sheets.
Sure.
So I have to go out, and I love to ride my bike to do things like that, but it is really difficult to get to out Highway 10 East. And I don't know how much has been looked at that to make it more accessible. It's very dangerous to cross those intersections where the people are coming off the highway. If there's some way of making that more manageable or more pleasant to get there. Plus I thought one of our priorities is trying to get people to bike to work rather than do vehicles. And right now, if you work out there, it's pretty impossible to, not impossible, but not very convenient to bike. So that if something could come up, a plan for something on that line. I know there's the underpass with the railroad, but that's really way out of the way.
Yep. No, your timing is good, Kathy, because Alder Jennings just brought up before we got into the agenda itself, there's a meeting on Monday at the Finance Committee discussing, I think, purchase of property regarding this very thing, a connection from the Green Circle Trail to the north side neighborhood, just north of Target, I believe. I'm not well versed in that area. I think Director Karnowski or Alder Jennings can speak to that. But you have a very valid point, of course. Regarding the same exact topic, I don't know if Director Badoon or if, Director Karnowski, if you can speak to Wisdot, they're planning for bicycle pedestrian or improved bicycle pedestrian facilities on the new Highway 10 bridge deck. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's one of the big parts of the improvements that they're planning there, is how to accommodate both pedestrians and bicyclists better. The current thought process is to eliminate the sidewalk on the one side and go to the center median multi-use path through the median, through the intersections. They're starting at Country Club Drive and ending over towards Maple Bluff Road there. So, but the majority of it be a center median multi-use path, 10-foot path. So they do have things planned.
Okay. So there's potentially bike ped facilities planned on Highway 10 deck, which would improve the safety for anybody biking or walking, as well as a potential new Green Circle Trail spur, if you will, to the north side neighborhood. So I don't know if that kind of takes care of that, or was there something else you're thinking of, Commissioner?
That sounds like a good thing.
Okay. Are there other project ideas or questions on what's been proposed so far? Okay. Didn't bring your creative hats on today. Sorry. No worries. Are there other sore points in the bike ped plan that haven't been addressed? You know, if there's something on your short list that is in the bike ped plan, this could be a potential. And obviously, we don't have to make a recommendation tonight, right? Because it's a matter of what staff decides to pursue. So I think what we'll do is you can contact staff or myself with other project ideas. And if that ends up being something that sticks with staff, then it could be pursued as well. So I think everyone has Adam's email. If you have another project, specifically if it's from the bike ped plan, that would be best. Please do email Adam. Adam, was there anything else you wanted to add for this application?
No, the only thing I wanted to add is just that the application itself will be due next month. So that's something that we do have obviously a little bit of time to work with, but it's something that we will want to, as staff, get the ball rolling sooner rather than later to finalize the types of project ideas that we're going to submit and then carry that into fruition. So it's something that it's just something that we don't need an answer this minute, but if you have any project ideas, say tomorrow or in the next few days or weeks, feel free to send it over to me and then staff can discuss it.
Okay, I did just have another question that's regarding process. So if you look at this application itself, we had talked a little bit about the costs involved. So because the students are coming from UW-Madison, they have to do site visits, and that costs money, of course. So what I discovered is on average, their site visits cost anywhere from $500 to $1,500, which is obviously a small chunk of change compared to what type of value you get out of this for a city. However, does that need finance committee approval? In other words, do we need to get this to you before the next finance committee and with proposals in place?
No. Things like this that are smaller, we can make line item budget changes within the department.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, thank you, Adam. All right, so item 6, staff update. We've got a list of items that staff have put together for us today.
All right, so starting out with the application for the bike-friendly community silver status. So some of you know, back in 2016, the city applied and was successfully awarded the bronze status by the League of American Bicyclists for meeting satisfactory levels in a variety of different criteria, such as education, evaluation, enforcement, etc. Now, that award will be expiring in 2020, which means that we as a city will need to reapply for the award in 2020. And with that, we're going to be applying for the silver status, which is just one notch up, meaning that it's a little bit more stringent criteria that we would have to meet in order to be awarded the silver status. So staff has been working on that for the last few weeks to finalize the application, and what we can tell you at this point is that the application in draft form is complete. Now, over the next few weeks, staff will take more of a harder look at the application to make sure that we have all the details and as much positive notes into the application as possible so we can increase our chances to receive the silver status. So, and I would note that the application is due by August 12th. So most likely within the next few weeks, we will be submitting that and then hopefully receiving good news from there.
Okay, great. Any questions for Adam from the commission? I'm not seeing any unmutes or hands popping up. Okay, thank you, Adam, for taking this on. And obviously, it's everything behind the scenes, right? Mostly research based, but it's really good once we get that response back from the LEB, because they give you such a good tool to improve, and it can be very useful. So thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so then the next update is the update on assessing bicycle parking, seating, and ADA compliance inventory for high demand traffic stops. Now, staff has been working on compiling more of a list of different locations that either meet or fail to meet any of these before mentioned criteria. Now, this has been happening for the last few months back into early spring, into the winter. Now, with the recent turnover in the associate planner zoning administrator position, this task has kind of more sifted into the back end a little bit as far as getting more of these criteria figured out. So staff's intention is to work on this within the next few weeks and hopefully bring to the commission our analysis and recommendations on the list of locations that meet or fail to meet sufficient bicycle parking, seating, and ADA compliance.
Sounds good. Just a couple of things. One is a point of clarification. I think you have a typo there. Should be transit stops instead of traffic stops. Yeah. So transit stops. And the second point, this is directly from our bicycle and pedestrian plan. So if you were to look at page 35, you'll find it on the plan. And so it's, it's kind of part of our charge to see this through. And I think it was probably a year and a half ago or so when our commission made this recommendation. So looking forward to that, working with you on that. Yeah, thank you.
Trevor, perhaps you can clarify, I guess it was a year and a half ago then, that you put a lot of work into rewriting bicycle parking ordinances. Did that ever go anywhere? Or because I know when Holy Spirit Parish built their new building, there was no discussion of any new requirements about bicycle parking.
Sure. Really quick there's a differentiation here. You're talking about the new bike parking ordinance, and this is specifically with inventory, the amount of bike parking, seating, and ADA compliance at transit stops.
It's
it's a totally separate thing.
Right.
To address your question, I think Ryan, Dr. Karnowski, could best. We had recommended new bike parking ordinance. That was probably closer to 3 years ago. And the initial plan was to envelop that into the new zoning ordinance, which was also in congruence with a new comprehensive plan. So I don't know, Director Karnowski, if you wanted to give us a really quick, even though this is a longer story, a super quick update on those items.
Yeah, so the city's comprehensive plan is actually closer to its final stages than it has been in the past. SEH, which is the contracted consultant that the city had used, had some significant staff turnover at one point, and the majority of the members that left SEH willingly or unwillingly were working on our city comprehensive plan. So we were running into issues with consistent styles of writing, that kind of a thing. And so what we ended up doing was we sent it over to the county to do a little bit of previewing and to make some adjustments, and that's kind of where it's at right now. We did start, previous to my tenure with the city, rewriting the city's zoning code to the 21st century model. We've kind of taken a step back and said, okay, let's get the comprehensive plan done first, then we'll work on the zoning code next. So my hope would be at 2020 or 2021 for the comp plan, and then the zoning code shortly thereafter.
Do you see any chance of updating just the bike parking? Because the way that zoning ordinance sits right now, it's very, very basic. It's literally like a miniature chapter on bike parking. Could the new ordinance, which was roughly 3 years ago recommended, could it just be replacing that?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely have that conversation. I think knowing that it might be a year and a half or 2 years to rewrite a whole zoning ordinance, this might be an opportunity just to, okay, codify it in that code. And that's going to make it more palatable when we create the new zoning ordinance. So I think staff would have an interest in including that as part of a Plan Commission agenda packet down the road.
Cool. That sounds great. Thank you. Couple of notes from the chat room here. Commissioner Finn, she had a clarification. So she's asking what transit stops are. So transit stops are basically bus stops throughout the city. And when we're talking high demand, we're really talking about which bus stops have the most people going to them, basically, on a regular basis. And then, addressing the bike parking and the seating and ADA compliance for each of those. Hopefully that clarifies your question. Okay, great. Adam, did you want to continue?
No, I am good from here. Scott will give the next update about the 2021 street reconstruction project.
Okay, well, actually, before you keep going, Alder Jennings, did you have a comment regarding the League of American Bicyclists, BFC?
Yes, I just wanted to thank Associate Planner Kuhn and staff for working on this. I was partially involved in this last time, and I know it's a great deal of work. And I think he's being a little bit humble because it is actually a significant difference between silver status and bronze status in terms of what that means and what it means for the city to have that feather in their cap. So I'm really hopeful with the implementation of the TAP project, the city will be competitive in that new category. It's also not only a feather in our city's cap, but it really helps for grant applications to be able to say that we have this silver status, and it really sets us apart from other communities. So again, I just wanted to thank everybody who's been working on this, and the commission as well. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Director Badoon, did you want to take the next bullet item?
Looks like I've got the next three. So update on 21 street reconstructs. Unfortunately for this year, we were hoping to have an engineer on staff throughout the year. That yet hasn't to happen. So we are a little bit behind. We knew eventually it would happen because compared to a few years back, engineering department has taken on a whole lot more work as well as construction activities as well. So we are a little bit behind, but as soon as I have something, which hopefully will be in the next couple of months to share, I will definitely share those with the commission. I don't know if anyone has any questions more specific to that, but unfortunately that's all I have to update on that, but wanted to let everyone know.
Okay, I do have one. So, well, we want to try with our commission, stay collaborative with the community and kind of align our next walking rolling audit with the street reconstructions. So I think I asked you in a meeting with other staff, but do you think if we scheduled our walking rolling audit for August to be right before this next commission meeting, you think we could do that, have a sense for which corridors we're going to be auditing, assessing?
Yes, I do. I'll be meeting with utilities here. We've been talking more just to kind of refine the area. The area is going to be on the north side. Part of the driving factor is going to be some stormwater issues that still need to be resolved as far as picking the final alignment for our the road work. But at that point in time, I should definitely know what they will be.
Okay. Thank you for that.
I would hope that we would have the
Sorry,
next walking audit where it is above 32 degrees.
You'd like a warmer one, is that your request?
Yes.
That's a very modest request. Great, so we will tentatively plan on a walking rolling audit for our August commission meeting just before it. So that would be great. All right, TAP grant update.
TAP grant, the funds have been encumbered by the state, and at this point in time, we're just waiting for the contractor to deliver the executed contracts. After which we'll have a pre-construction conference, which we're required to have, and we should start to see some activity then, probably sometime later next month.
Okay, are there questions from the commission regarding TAP grant? Okay, well, that was easy, Director. All right. Moving on to Business 51.
Business 51 just had a meeting with AECom today. They're revising their public involvement plan. Just started paying it through since from the onset of COVID. No one really knew exactly where it was going. It seems that, there's a lot, have kind of settled into, virtual meetings, and more people, those that maybe never have done it before have learned and are now doing it. So we're going to try to take an approach that utilizes virtual meetings to get some involvement going here. The plan is to hopefully have our first stakeholders meeting sometime in August.
Okay. Would you suggest that AECom is still on schedule with their process?
Well, the overall schedule is going to, have slipped based on the months that were essentially lost, because, while they've done some of the more technical stuff in the background, a big driving force over what's eventually going to be the 30% design is going to be, driven by the public involvement meeting. So without having had those, they haven't been able to, kind of work down some of those avenues and try to evaluate some of the ideas and thought processes we have that would come out of that. So, overall, instead of having the planning part of it done, at the end of this year, it will definitely spill into next year.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the commission? And not seeing any questions or comments from the audience or residents. Okay. Well, if there are no other staff updates, questions or comments, then we are adjourned at 4:03 p.m.
Videos of these meetings are available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.